Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Night Talks podcast. It's been a good couple of days without anything, any news, any football, any talk. Football is back. I mean, after the international break, I think I took a few days off, kind of like reflecting on a few things, right? Basically, I brought some news basically 2 days ago talking about, right, Maino, talking about, Sandro Tonali, and the last couple of days also talking about a few other interests when it comes to Man United and all that. We talked about Iliman Ndiaye and Yan Diomande, but now we're going to talk about Yan Diomande specifically because of news that just came out over the last couple of hours, maybe the last 24 hours. So welcome back to United Talks podcast. And thank you for sticking with me. And thank you for helping us reach 3,600 subscribers. I don't take you guys for granted. I really, really appreciate you guys, your support, your connection, your everything. Like your comments, like some of you just kind of appreciate the analysis we do, the deep dives we do, the breakdowns and all of that. Now we have come with another one, right? So grab a drink. Settle in and get ready for this massive deep dive about today. Because today we're tearing into the transfer story that has absolutely exploded across the timeline, across, basically your timeline over the last pretty much couple of months, right? And the last 48 hours as well. Now we're talking about the player who has taken Bundesliga completely by storm. We saw him also at the AFCON, and we can tell you categorically that this player is a good player, to behold, one to watch, and all that. So we're going to just kind of break it down for you. I'm going to talk about all of those things. He's a player who is currently being hailed by scouts across Europe as a defender's worst nightmare, a generational talent on the flank, and potentially the most explosive attacking expert to come across the Red Bull system in years. And I am, of course, talking about 19-year-old Ivorian sensation Yan Diomande. Now, right now, the rumor mill is absolutely on overdrive. Right, you've likely seen like the headlines, the aggregated tweets, and the frantic forum posts, and there are also reports surfacing that some incredibly bold, some basically bordering on reckless, suggesting that Man United and Ineos sporting hierarchy have already bypassed the filling out process and placed a formal concrete bid on the table for the RB Leipzig winger. Now we're talking about figures in the region of around 80 to 100 million euros being thrown around like it's pocket change. The fact is, we've seen news, we've seen a whole lot of things, we've seen like a whole lot of talk, and Indy Kyler came out specifically, before I kind of give you the breakdown and all of that, Indy Kyler came out specifically to state that Man United put in a bid. So we'll dive deep into that and kind of, break it down as we go. So thank you for joining me, and let's get going. Like I said, get strapped in. Right now, the rumor mill is basically in absolute overdrive, right? But let's pump the brakes on a little bit, especially on this channel. We don't just read headlines. We analyze the reality. We analyze what is. Like I said, some days I could bring you just headlines, but I'll analyze it and tell you about basically where it's done, where it came from, the roots, the deep dive. If the player is of great potential, we'll talk about him as well. Now, is the deal done? No. Is there actually an 87 million pound bid sitting in an inbox in Germany right now? No. Or is this another classic case of early transfer season fever, drummed up by agents and tier 4 sources? And in as much as we won't talk about it, there's tier 4 sources, and I'm looking for tier 1, right? Now, we have some reports from Fabrizio Romano also talking about things like these, but then we have to also take it with a pinch of salt, right? He said his own fair share or his own bit about it, but then we can only make do with what we have, right? So now it could be an early transfer season, an early transfer window fever drummed up by tier 4 sources looking for kind of engagement. But over the next half hour, or basically next couple of minutes, we are going to completely dissect the situation, and we're going to look at the raw, undeniable numbers that justify Diomande's outrageous price tag. And we'll break down exactly how he fits into this tactical blueprint at Old Trafford. We are going to also heavily question the reliability of the supposed image mega bid that Man United have put in for the player. And we're also going to we're going back to January to uncover the truth about Jason Wilcox's transfer strategy. And crucially, we're going to bring you the absolute latest verified information from Fabrizio Romano, who has completely blown this story wide open, regarding the intentions of RB Leipzig, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, and Paris Saint-Germain. Now, before we touch the transfer politics, we're going to talk about, the player on the pitch. Why is every elite institution in European football watching this teenager? The short answer is that his numbers are frankly terrifying for a player of his age. But another thing that, comes across Man United fans is the fact that most players who we've signed from Germany have barely clicked at the club. You take a look at Jadon Sancho, you take a look at, all players, the Austrian midfielder, most of these players who sign from Germany. And then even in the Premier League, most players signed from Germany tend to struggle to meet up with, the demands of the Premier League. I don't know why that is. Other people have done researches. You can check some of these big content creators online who have been doing this for years, and they've done their research, and they've kind of come up with the stats that show why German players from German league don't really click to gear in the Premier League. But it is what it is. Now, the stats, right? The stats are basically scary, right? Now, in a league, renowned for his tactical rigidity and his intense pressing traps, Diomande has been a complete anomaly. Across 30 appearances in all competitions this season, he has registered a staggering 21 goal involvements. That breaks down to kind of like 11 goals and 7 assists in the Bundesliga and European competitions combined. So now 11 goals and 7 assists in all competitions. So that's something we need to also look at. That's something we need to also talk about. That's something we also think about as well. Now, for a 19-year-old to walk into Champions League level side like RB Leipzig and immediately demand the ball, dictate the tempo of the final third, and produce a product, an end product at the volume, at that volume, is incredibly rare. But it is not just a raw output. Not just the raw output. It's how he gets there. Diomande is a volume dribbler, right? That's the key aspect to understand. He's a volume dribbler, but unlike many young wingers who run down blind alleys and all of that, his dribbling skills has a devastating end product. Let's look at the underlying metrics here. Right now, he ranks second for successful dribbles per 90 minutes across all of Europe's top 5 leagues. He's sitting at an unbelievable 81 successful dribbles this season. So he's so direct. He gets the ball and he takes it and approaches you with reckless abandon, basically. Now, to put it into perspective, right, he is comfortably outperforming established world-class ball carriers like Luis Diaz when he was at Liverpool and who is currently at Bayern Munich. We're talking about even being compared to someone like Olise, right? And then now the only player in the entire continent ahead of him right now is Barcelona's Lamine Yamal when it comes to dribbling. So that's a huge comparison to actually make with that with a player. But yeah, it's something that we need to also think about and all of that. When you possess a player who can successfully isolate his fullback and beat him one-on-one with a level of consistency, you completely break the opposition's defensive structure. Tactical setups rely on numerical parity or superiority in wide areas. Now, when Diomande gets the ball on the left flank, you cannot defend him with one man. You have to send a double team. But then, like I said, the English Premier League is a different beast. It's a different beast. You cannot continue. You cannot say that's going to be the same when it comes to how he approaches the game. But yeah, the English Premier League is a different beast, right? When Diomande gets the ball on the left flank, like I said, you cannot mark him one-on-one with one player. You have to double team him, and you have to, shift your defensive midfielder over. And the moment an opposition team does that, the massive spaces open up in the central channels for, the number 10s or the strikers to exploit. And that is the gravity of a player like him, like Diomande. That's the gravity of the talent that he possesses. He creates chances simply by existing on the touchline and forcing the opposition to panic. Furthermore, his data shows that he ranks in the top 10% of all wingers across Europe's top 5 leagues for, progressive carries, chances created from open play, and non-penalty expected goals. That is more than amazing to see for his numbers. I'm not trying to blow him up or trying to kind of take things out of proportion or kind of, big him up when he's not yet there. But we have to say the facts when we see it, right? We have to say facts when we see it, right? Now, he creates chances simply by existing on touchline. He's a touchline guy, right? We've all seen him multiple times. He's a touchline guy. But then, the data shows that he ranks in the top 10% of wingers across Europe's top 5 league for progressive carries. As I said, chances created in open play and non-penalty expected goals. Now, he's an explosive player. He's very dynamic. He's a street football style winger who has, married raw flair and clinical German efficiency. He's married raw flair with clinical German efficiency. Now, let's address the massive elephant in the room, which is something we need to talk about. And it is the phantom bid that has been stated by Indicala that Man United had made for Diomande. Over the last few days, various outlets have claimed that Manchester United have made a massive bid, right? Have stolen a march on their rivals by submitting a formal bid to RB Leipzig. Now, we need to take a massive step back and apply some critical thinking here if we're going to analyze this. Let's look at the reliability of those claims. Like I said, I don't come out here to come and do just talk or give you the headlines because I want to be excited. We're always looking at how reliable those claims are and how we can make what sense we can make from it. Right. Now, while it's incredibly exciting to imagine that Ineos are throwing their weight around early in the window, reputable reporters, including Sky Sports Germany, have been incredibly cautious about the news, right? As of right now, the reality on ground strongly suggests that RB Leipzig have not received an official written offer from Manchester United. And why is that? First, consider the timeline. We are still in the final stretch of the season, 7 games to go, I believe, and submitting 100 million euros bid before the summer window even opens and before European qualification and subsequent budgets are kind of mathematically finalized completely contradicts the methodical data-driven approach that Jason Wilcox and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are trying to implement. The days of Ed Woodward blandly throwing £90 million at a player in a panic is supposedly over, as is expected from the most of us, especially as fans. Right. So let's talk about this further. Right. The second part of this analysis is the fact that the price tag itself is a problem. RB Leipzig are fully aware of the asset that they hold, and they are reportedly demanding a minimum of 100 million euros, roughly 87 million pounds, to even begin negotiations for a player with less than 2 full seasons of top-flight European experience. And 9-figure bid is massive. And basically, this massive 9-figure bid is a defining financial commitment, right? It represents an entirety of a club's summer budget in one swift move. And everybody's excited. You check X, you see a whole lot of things. You see a lot of people, beginning up, reposting and saying, oh, mine have made a bid. The truth is, we're looking at this from the surface. In the real sense of things, mine haven't made any bid. While verbal interest from Manchester United is absolutely concrete, the idea is that a formal bid has been lodged, and it feels incredibly premature to state that. And it feels like this is an agent talk designed to smoke out the competition, basically. Now, the competition is actually fierce for a player like him. And these are the kinds of players that Bayern Munich, whether they have like 4, 5, 6, 7 wingers, would snap at. Now, this brings us to the latest updates from the undisputed kings of transfer news in Fabrizio Romano. I mean, he's gotten some of his transfer talks, this last couple of years, okay. I mean, we could say 70 to 80% of his transfers have come to light. I mean, the one that shocked us was when he came up with Spurs going for, even though that deal collapsed, but let's not go deep. Now, Romano has taken to his platforms recently to clarify exactly what is happening behind the scenes, and his insights completely reframed the entire saga, and we have to talk about it. And we don't want this to be another Jadon Sancho saga. Romano has confirmed a story that has been quietly, bubbling under the surface for months. Manchester United's interest is not new. In fact, United and Tottenham Hotspur both, showed serious, tangible interest in Diomande during the January transfer window, but no deal materialized. Why? Because according to Romano, United's director of football, Jason Wilcox, was initially prioritizing a move for Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth. Right? Wilcox saw Semenyo as the perfect profile to add immediate Premier League proven power to the attacking line. We already have that, right? But let's also think about Semenyo. Now he's been at City for the last 3 months and he's won a trophy already, right? So now, in a brutal twist of fate, Wilcox was beaten to the punch by former employers Manchester City, who swooped in to secure Semenyo, and we know how that went, as I just said just now. Semenyo has won the trophy already and is on the brink of winning another, and he just scored a goal where they smashed Liverpool, right? So, once Semenyo was off the table, Wilcox and United's recruitment team pivoted their attention directly to Diomande, and you could understand that Christopher Vivell is involved in all of this because he was the one that brokered the deal and initiated the Benjamin Sesko one. So Romano explicitly stated that for Man United, Diomande was already on the shortlist and remains the player that is appreciated by the club. Yet, crucially, United never made a formal approach in January, whether they are restricted by profits and sustainability rules or whether they simply felt like Leipzig's mid-season valuation was too inflated. United opted to keep the powder dry. Right? And that's very key in all of that. Now, that hesitation, that choice to hold off in January might end up being a catastrophic strategic error because the landscape has completely shifted over the last 3 months and United are no longer in a two-horse race with Tottenham. The secret is out and the absolute heavyweights of European football are circling. Romano has also confirmed that Liverpool are now actively looking and monitoring Diomande, and this is where it gets really terrifying for United fans because Liverpool's interest is not just casual. They are reportedly viewing the 19-year-old as potential long-term placement for Mohamed Salah. Liverpool just crashed out of the FA Cup in the last few hours. Now, think about the gravity of that statement. If the recruitment team at Anfield, arguably the best in the business over the last 6-7 years, believes that the ceiling to replace the Egyptian king, believe that a player like Diomande has the ceiling to replace the Egyptian king, then your market value skyrockets. And that's true. Or maybe it could be agent-led as well, agent-driven, where the agent is saying Liverpool is interested, and maybe Liverpool are not really interested. Maybe they are monitoring, but as I stated, Liverpool are monitoring, right? Now, Liverpool operates with a specific data model, and if Diomande is lifting up or lighting up the algorithms, then you can be sure that a massive bid from Messi's side is a very real possibility. But it does not stop there, because Romano added that Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich are both really interested, and they are attentive to the situation of winger. And Diomande from Red Bull Leipzig is of interest to PSG and Bayern Munich. So these two clubs are for sure following and monitoring the player. And the truth is, Sorry about that. The truth is, we have to talk about this. We have to be very factual about where we're at when it comes to these kinds of things. You know, if Paris Saint-Germain are linked, then you could see why, right? They have a player like Bradley Barcola who plays that same position, but then you could also understand the logic behind going for a player like Diomande, because if they go for a player like him, they will most likely get him. Paris Saint-Germain, still heavily in their post-Kylian Mbappe rebuild phase, are looking to construct a team of elite dynamic youngsters, as they've done over the last couple of years, right? Diomande fits that, Luis Enrique profile perfectly, and Bayern Munich, meanwhile, are perpetually in the market for the best talent in the Bundesliga, and they've always successfully done that for several years now, right? It is kind of essentially their unwritten rule that if you're a star in Germany, then you eventually end up in Bavaria. Now, Bayern might also balk at a straight €100 million fee right now, given that the other squad, given their other squad needs, their presence in the negotiation room also complicates everything, as we have come to realize over time. So, United, Liverpool and PSG and Spurs are all hovering with, and what does RB Leipzig do, right? What does RB Leipzig do when it comes to interest from players and from teams like United, Liverpool, PSG and Bayern Munich, as well as Spurs? They do exactly what Red Bull always does. They try to control the narrative and maximize the asset's value. Leipzig are not a selling club in the traditional, sense. They are a calculated trading hub. They sell when the time is right for them, not when the buying club demands it. You remember what happened when Benjamin Šeško moved from RB Salzburg to RB Leipzig at the age of 20, right? And I think they had the same thing with Erling Haaland from Molde to RB Salzburg, and then eventually to Borussia Dortmund, right? So these are the Red Bull group are very good with dealing with these kinds of deals. Now, Romano also dropped a massive piece of information regarding Leipzig's immediate strategy. And he stated that Leipzig have proposed to Diomande to stay at least for one more season, sign a new contract, and improve the salary. Like, for him to stay one more season, by then he'll be 20. His value would also skyrocket too, and then he could also sign a new contract and with an improved salary. Now, this is a classic RB Leipzig playbook, right? We saw it with Christopher Nkunku, we saw it with Dominik Szoboszlai, we saw it with Josko Vardiol. Now, Diomande is currently on a relatively low salary, completely disproportionate to his output of 11 goals and 7 assists. But Leipzig are sitting down with its representatives, and offering a compromise, to sign a new deal, double or triple your weekly wage, give us one more guaranteed season until the summer of 2027 or 2028, and then in return, we'll insert a gentleman's agreement or a massive release clause that allows you to leave on good terms later. This puts the ultimate power in the hands of the player, Diomande, and in his newly appointed representatives of Rock Nation Sports International, right? Now, they must now make a career-defining choice, and that is what it brings into question. The question is now, do they accept the immediate financial security and guaranteed playing time in Germany to continue his development, or do they aggressively push for an immediate summer sale while his stock is arguably at the most volatile peak? A summer move remains maybe entirely possible, but Leipzig's stance is very clear. Now, if you want him now, you have to pay the go-away price, you pay the 100 million euros. That is what Leipzig are saying. That is what's coming out from Germany. That is what most journalists are reporting and all of that. But we have to kind of analyze everything, right? Now, let's bring this back to Manchester United and look at the tactical reality of the current squad. While United are even looking at 100 million euros left winger when there are, fires burning in the other areas of the pitch. The truth is, the left side of Manchester United's attack and defense is facing a structural crisis, right? The squad is undergoing a ruthless transformation. Players who were once deemed the future are now the proprietary, are now on the periphery. If you look at the wide areas, a massive vacancy is opening up. The direct street football style that Diomande possesses is exactly what the team has been desperately missing when breaking down low blocks. United need a player who does not just recycle possession, but also actively seeks to destroy the defender in front of him. You look at it, we've moved away from a formation or a style of play that does not require wingers, and it requires a lot of 10s, and now we're moving to a style of play that requires wingers. But signing Diomande also creates a massive domino effect, particularly when you look at the left back situation. If you deploy an ultra-aggressive high-flying winger like Diomande, then you need a tactical balance behind him, and you need a left back who can actually either overlap efficiently or lock down the transition defense. Right now, United's left back situation is a complete unknown. Luke Shaw's fitness remains a perpetual question mark, because this season has been the most, this season he has played the most minutes. This is the season he's played the most number of games and all of that. So these are the things you have to kind of look at and say, you know what, can Luke Shaw actually do the job? Can Luke Shaw actually make things happen? Can Luke Shaw actually, continue this form next season? People are saying that Luke Shaw has been playing to make the World Cup squad. Well, it is what it is. So, like I said, United needs a player that does not need to recycle possession. But then you have to look at the fact that, obviously, on the other side, we need replacements for sure. Now, the club has also had high hopes on a certain Harry Amas. I was going to do a video asking where is Harry Amas and what his numbers say, but he has been sidelined with a hamstring injury, a frustrating injury, since the end of January window. He was called back and then also sent back on loan again to another club from Sheffield Wednesday, I think. Because of this, if United fail to sign Diomande, either because he signs a new deal with Leipzig or Liverpool beat them to the punch, then the backup plans are risky. United might be forced to trust internal developing options like Patrick Dogu, Matheus Cunha on that left side, obviously, but with them alone, we don't have depth. That's a fact. In as much as we want to believe in our own ability to generate players, we still don't have depth. And like I said in the post game for Bournemouth, we can't go into this next season with the squad that we have. But then you want to rely on Cunha and Dogu to balance the wide responsibilities, but relying on potential rather than proven output is exactly what has derailed previous seasons. Now, if Diomande is off the table, the new elite left back becomes an absolute non-negotiable priority to ensure that there is elite progression down the flank. Now, you cannot play a makeshift winger or a developing youth prospect without an elite fullback behind him. So, what's the final verdict for all of this thing I've just been saying, the grammar I've been speaking here? Has a bid been made based on the timeline, the Ineos strategy, and the reports from the most reliable journalists in the industry, including Fabrizio Romano? It is highly, 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 highly unlikely that a former 87 million pound bid has been lodged. Now, the stories claiming otherwise are almost certainly jumping the gun. However, the interest is undeniable. Obviously, Manchester United has registered their interest. The scouting is done as well, because there's been reports that Man United have been watching the player. The analytics department has also flagged him as a premier target. Now, the missed opportunity in January means that United are now playing catch up in the transfer race that includes the wealthiest and the most tactically astute clubs in Europe. There's also reports out there that Man United do not have money to sign players. I brought you the financial analysis, and I said that with the direction that the club is going, we might likely sign cheaper options than just going for the full-blown, targets and the full-blown options for Manchester United. So it's just basically what we're going to be looking at and what we're going to be analyzing. And the truth is, you cannot make this up, right? Now, Diomande is a massive decision to take or to make. Basically, Leipzig have put a lucrative extension on the table. Now, the ball is entirely in his court, but if he rejects that contract and the starting gun is fired, and we are looking at the Premier League, the Premier Target saga of the summer. If he starts, then it becomes a Premier Target of the summer. Manchester United have the financial muscle, but the question is, do they have the sporting project to convince him to choose Old Trafford over Anfield or the Parc des Princes? We also have to think about what is more important. That is it wise for Ineos to drop the entire summer budget on a 19-year-old, no matter how talented, when the squad requires a surgery in multiple areas, especially in midfield? I know we're targeting midfielders. I know we're targeting players that we need to we need to rebuild that midfield squad, right? The midfield part of the squad. Now, that is the 100 million euro question that we need to ask. Should they focus on dumping 100 million euros on a player while we have gaping holes in the midfield? Now, let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comment section. Would you sanction an 87 million pound move for Diomande, or would you walk away and spread the money across a winger, a left back, and a central midfielder, or even a defensive midfielder? Make sure you drop a like on this video if you like this deep dive and you enjoyed how we broke it down detail by detail to kind of just give you an understanding of where we're headed. And subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to United Talks podcast on all of your social media platforms, as well as YouTube and Facebook. And also, if you want some more relentless tactical transfer analysis, I'll see you on the next one. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to all things Manchester United. I'll see you on the next one. Like I said once again, take care, goodbye, and God bless.